Hey, Industry 4.0 friends. Is digital transformation best driven from the top down, from the headquarters, or is it best driven from the bottom up, from the factory floor? Yeah, I'm responding to a post that Khaled Lajili from our Factory Automation Insiders crew posted on LinkedIn earlier on and advocating for more bottom up transformation. And I fully endorse this, and I think it makes a lot of sense. What's really key here is about having the actual business operations for manufacturing and for the things that actually really produce the real value in the enterprise to be involved in driving the strategy. If we look at silos that exist in our organizations today, and we look at lack of awareness of different disciplines or across different disciplines, it's pretty hard to do. And that means that the business does need to tap into expertise in order to help rethink and reshape existing systems, existing components that make up your current OT and IT environment. And that's what's important. Digital transformation, in fact, it's all encoded in that word, digital transformation. And as Walker Reynolds said in a recent video on YouTube, is that most people don't actually know what digital transformation is. And yes, I agree with Walker that it is a strategy. And it's all about reinventing, reshaping, reworking, and rebuilding what is digital in your enterprise. Because the old IT and the old OT are no longer fit for purpose. And I can give a couple of examples for this. So while I do agree that digital transformation should be driven from within the business and definitely from the factory floor, from the machines, from the operators, from the people that are involved in actual production. Absolutely. All right. By using legacy OT as a way of trying to achieve your transformation and clinging on to the old ways of working and the old technology, it's also going to fail. We see failures where IT and headquarter initiatives have tried to push top down new software and new applications as a kind of a wrapper around what is a very shaky foundation. So with any kind of construction, we have to address our foundational issues first. So what would we need to do differently in OT in order to build this solid foundation? See, I got an example, a practical example relating to PLCs. A lot of programmable logic controllers out there really are all about just handling logic. Things get reduced down to discrete on-off signals, including analog data. So when I'm actually trying to measure temperature, pressure, flow rate in a process, I will need to convert, obviously, my continuous measurement, my analog data, into some kind of digital form. And then, even worse, I will need to map it to thresholds that reflect changes of state. For those of you that are familiar with PLC programming, you'll be familiar with the notion of low, high, low, low, and high, high thresholds, where you're taking an actual value, comparing it against a threshold, and if it's above the threshold, well, it's a high. If it's above a second threshold, it's a high, high. And you are acting on those thresholds more than you are actually using the analog data. Okay, but in order for us to be digitally transformed, we actually need to observe and have better visibility on those variances. It's not just the changes of state. And those changes of state are meaningless without context. If I'm just seeing a pattern of ones and zeros on a time series database, I don't really know what signal they map to. And even worse, if I do know that signal, how is that signal related to other signals? So that's why we have to build some kind of virtual representation of the plant in the system in order for this data to actually make sense. And that's pretty hard to do. But it's even harder to do when we have a shaky foundation. So my challenge here really is, how can we do OT differently, right? How can we actually get rid of an entire set of technologies that are in the automation layer? And this doesn't have to be done radically. It just depends on your strategy for digital transformation. How fast do you want to go? How many things do you want to break? How many rules do you want to break? How many standards do you want to actually avoid and not be part of? All those things will drive how fast you're going to go. But trust me, there are radical ways you can do it. And there are ways that are a little bit more gentle that will allow you to coexist legacy, wrap it around something more modern, and then do it differently. What you do need to do, though, is to, again, transform the digital parts of your estate. Starting with OT is great. And replacing PLCs with new generation hardware, wrapping PLCs with better gateways, bypassing some of your analog measurement data collection. So instead of having instruments, transducers connect to a PLC only, have a parallel connection into some kind of data collection point. Again, context is key, and that's also why being able to move towards event-driven architectures that leverage unified namespace is a good thing. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think that this is completely crazy? And do you think that by just adding software on a weak foundation that you'll be digitally transformed? Or do you think that the digital transformation really starts at the factory floor in your OT layer and then working upwards from there?